He refused the treatment that could save her life. He said it was too expensive. My daughter was dying in the ICU, and her husband, the man who promised to love her, was worried about the bill while he partied on a yacht. He thought I was just an old mechanic, thousands of miles away, too broken to stop him. He was about to learn that I don't just fix broken engines. I demolish monsters. If you're listening to this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps to know I'm not alone in this crazy world. My name is Frank, and this is the story of how I saved my daughter by destroying the man who tried to kill her. The smell of engine oil and stale coffee usually calmed me. It was the scent of my life. Frank's Auto Repair. 35 years I'd owned this shop. I fixed other people's problems. I listened to the rattles and knocks of their lives, fixed the engine block and sent them back on the road, safe and sound. I was good at fixing things. But that Wednesday evening, as I locked the main gate, the familiar smells couldn't quiet the grinding noise in my own gut. It wasn't an engine rattle, it was anxiety. Raw, it was anxiety. Raw and cold. My hands, usually steady enough to handle delicate wiring, trembled slightly as I fumbled with the keys. Something was wrong with Sarah. It had been 6 days since I'd heard her voice. 6 days? That wasn't like her. Not even a text. Not a single emoji reply to the picture I sent of the old Mustang I was restoring. The silence was unnatural. Sarah was my only child. She was the best part of me. The best part of her mother, Linda. When Linda passed away 8 years ago, it nearly broke us. Cancer took her too soon. It left a hole in the universe. But Sarah and I, we glued the pieces back together. We became a team. She was bright. She had a laugh that could light up the darkest room. A heart so big I always worried the world would break it. She was everything I wasn't. Outgoing, optimistic, full of dreams. I just never thought the world would come for her in the form of a man named Kevin. 3 years ago, her world shifted. She moved to Los Angeles for a big job at a marketing firm. Bright lights, big city. She was chasing her dreams. I was proud of her, terrified, but proud. And then she met him. Kevin, the name tasted like battery acid. He was smooth. All tailored suits and teeth so white they looked fake. He talked big. He spoke about ventures and networking and synergies. It always felt rehearsed, like a script he'd memorized from a bad movie about businessmen. He was charming. I'll give him the devil his due. He charmed Sarah right off her feet. She fell hard and fast. But I didn't trust him. My instincts, honed by decades of dealing with customers trying to hide a cracked engine block or a slipped transmission, screamed that Kevin was running on fumes. He was all polish and no substance. He didn't look at Sarah like a man looks at the woman he loves. He looked at her the way a scavenger looks at a classic car left in a junkyard, calculating how much he could strip for parts. Sarah was smitten, blinded by the shine. She insisted he was ambitious. "You just don't understand the LA hustle, Dad," she'd told me over the phone, her voice defensive. "He's going places. He's brilliant. Brilliance doesn't pay the bills, honey." I'd warned her. Character does. She hadn't listened. They were married within a year. I wore a suit that felt too tight and smiled until my face hurt, while a cold dread settled in my stomach. I wanted to protect her. I did the only thing I knew how to do. I made a sacrifice. The ultimate sacrifice. Linda and I had saved for decades to pay off our house. It was our security, our retirement, our legacy. I sold it. I downsized to the small, cramped apartment above the garage. The smell of oil was stronger up here. The noise from the street kept me up night, but it didn't matter. I put every single penny, nearly $500,000, into an ironclad trust fund for Sarah. It was her safety net. It was her protection against the world, and more importantly, against Kevin. I made sure Kevin couldn't touch the principal, the core money. He was listed as a co-trustee, so he could manage their day-to-day expenses from the interest. But any major withdrawal, that required my signature, my approval, or so I thought. I trusted the paperwork. I trusted the lawyer. I didn't realize I had left a loophole big enough for a snake to crawl through. I wiped the grease from my hands and pulled out my phone. It was 9 p.m. here, 6 p.m. in California. I dialed Sarah's number. Again, for the 5th time that day. Straight to voicemail. "Hi, it's Sarah. Leave a message." Her voice, cheerful and bright on the recording, twisted a knife in my chest. Where was she? I called Kevin. I'd called him on Monday, 2 days ago, when the silence started getting too loud. She's fine, Frank, he had said, his voice breezy, dismissive, like I was an annoying telemarketer interrupting his dinner. Just a nasty stomach bug. The doctor saw her, said she just needs rest and fluids. I'm taking good care of her. A stomach bug. Maybe it was possible. But why wouldn't she text? Why wouldn't she send a simple, "I'm okay, Dad"? Why wouldn't she answer a single call? This silence wasn't just loud. It was screaming at me. I dialed Kevin's number again. It rang 4 times. I pictured him in some overpriced restaurant, swirling a glass of wine he couldn't afford, ignoring my call. He finally picked up. Yeah? His voice was loud, aggressive. In the background I could hear music. Not just music. A party. The thumping bass of dance music. The chatter of dozens of people. The clinking of glasses. The sound of laughter. He was at a party while my daughter was sick. My blood ran cold. Kevin, it's Frank. I need to talk to Sarah. My voice was steady, but my hand tightened around the phone until my knuckles turned white. I was trying to keep the anger out of my voice. Trying to stay calm. Hey, Frank. What's up? He shouted over the noise, suddenly cheerful. The switch was too fast. Too fake. She's asleep, man. Like I told you, the medication the doctor gave her knocks her out cold. Asleep at 6 p.m. while he was out living it up. It's only 6 o'clock there, Kevin. Wake her up. I need to hear her voice. The anxiety was turning into something colder, sharper. Fear was turning into anger, and the anger was demanding action. Look, I really can't, Kevin snapped. His cheerfulness vanished in an instant. The mask slipped. She needs her sleep. Stop worrying, okay? I've got things handled here. You're being paranoid. Handled, the word dripped with arrogance. Paranoid, the word dripped with contempt. Handled? You're at a party, Kevin. Why, your wife is too sick to even talk? My voice was rising now. I didn't care if the neighbors heard. I didn't care about anything except hearing Sarah's voice. It's not a party, Frank. It's a networking event, he said, his voice tight with irritation. A very important one for our future. He paused. A calculated pause. My future. My future. Not our future. The distinction hit me like a punch to the gut. He was already separating himself from her, already planning a life without her. I'm doing this for us, he continued, the lie smooth and practiced. I'll have her call you tomorrow. Gotta run. The investors are waiting. He hung up, just like that. The sound of the party was abruptly cut off. I was last standing alone in the echoing silence of my empty garage. The air was heavy with the smell of gasoline and fear. The fear that had been simmering now boiled over into raw panic. He was lying. I didn't know why. I didn't know about what, but I knew he was lying. A father knows when his child is in danger. And my daughter was in trouble. I sat down heavily on an old stack of tires. My mind was racing. The engine was overheating. What could be done? I was thousands of miles away, a mechanic in a small town. Powerless. The helplessness was suffocating, a feeling I hadn't experienced since the day I sat in the hospital and watched Linda slip away. The feeling of watching something precious break and not being able to fix it. I wanted to trust Kevin. I wanted to believe the simple explanation. A stomach bug, rest, fluids, but my gut screamed that trusting him was a mistake I couldn't afford to make, a mistake that could cost me everything. I couldn't just sit here. I had to do something. If she was really sick, and he wasn't taking care of her, where would she be? Where would she go? It felt insane, desperate. But I started calling hospitals. I didn't even know exactly where in LA they lived. Kevin insisted on moving every few months, always upgrading to a more prestigious neighborhood, always chasing the image, always spending more money than they had. I started with the big ones, the names I recognized from TV shows. UCLA Medical Center, Cedars-Sinai, Good Samaritan. I was on hold for hours. The music was torture. Some smooth jazz tune that made my skin crawl. Operators cited privacy laws, HIPAA, They refused to confirm or deny anything. They couldn't tell me if my daughter was there. I was trapped in a maze of bureaucracy, desperate for a single shred of information, blocked at every turn while the clock kept ticking. Tick-a-did-tock. Every second felt like an hour. Every minute felt like a lifetime. The night dragged on. My coffee grew cold. My fear grew hot. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I tried to remember the name of the neighborhood she mentioned last time. Santa Monica? Yes, that was it. They had moved near the beach. Kevin loved the ocean view. He loved the status symbol of a Santa Monica address. I called St. John's Health Center in Santa Monica. "I'm looking for my daughter," I said, my voice trembling, worn raw from hours of pleading. "Her name is Sarah Miller." I used her married name. It felt wrong on my tongue, like a betrayal of Linda. The operator was quiet for a moment. I heard the tapping of keys. My heart hammered against my ribs. Please, please let her be there. Please let her be okay. Please hold, sir." The hold music was tinny and awful. That terrible elevator jazz again. Every second stretched into an agonizing eternity. I paced the garage floor, the concrete cold beneath my feet. I kicked a loose bolt across the floor. The sound echoed in the silence. Then a different voice came on the line. Brisk, professional. "Sir, this is the admissions supervisor. We do have a Sarah Miller registered here." My heart leaped, a painful spasm of hope and terror. Hope that I found her. Terror at what I might find. "Okay, good. Is she okay? Can I talk to her?" Her husband said it was a stomach bug. The questions tumbled out, desperate and disjointed. I sounded like a crazy old man. I didn't care. The voice softened, but the words were heavy. "Sir, I cannot give condition updates over the phone. I can only confirm she is a patient. Where is she? What room?" I demanded, the fear making me bold. I needed to know. I needed to visualize her. I needed to know she was safe. There was a pause, a long, agonizing pause. A hesitation that sent ice through my veins. The kind of pause that precedes bad news. "She is in the intensive care unit." The world stopped. The garage, the smell of oil, the sound of traffic outside. It all vanished. The silence was deafening. Intensive care unit. ICU. That wasn't a stomach bug. That wasn't resting. That was life support. That was dying. How long? I managed to choke out. The words were thick in my throat. I couldn't breathe. "She was admitted late Sunday evening, sir." Sunday? 3 days. She had been there for 3 days. Alone. Kevin had told me on Monday she was fine. He had told me an hour ago she was asleep in their apartment. He had looked me in the eye, metaphorically over the phone, and lied. The cold, calculated lies. The cruelty of it was staggering. "I'm her father," I whispered. The rage started to build, a cold fire in my chest, replacing the fear, fueling the action. I'm coming now. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't call anyone. I grabbed my wallet and my keys, locked the apartment door, and drove straight to the airport. The engine of my old truck roared to life. I bought a ticket for the next red-eye flight to Los Angeles. The price was astronomical. It drained my emergency savings, but I didn't care. Money meant nothing right now. It was just paper. Only time mattered, and I was running out of time. The flight was torture. 5 hours suspended in the darkness, trapped in a metal tube with nothing but my fears for company. The pressurized air felt thin. The recycled oxygen tasted stale. The cabin was quiet. People slept around me, but my mind was a screaming riot of worst-case scenarios. ICU, what did that mean? Accident. Illness. What had he done to her? The memory of that thumping music. The laughter. The clinking glasses on Kevin's end of the phone. It made me physically sick. I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms. He was at a party, while my daughter was in the ICU. The callousness was staggering. It wasn't just neglect. It was something darker, something monstrous. I kept replaying the last few years, looking for the signs I had missed, the red flags I ignored, The warnings I dismissed, the way Kevin always complained about the measly allowance from the trust, the way he started pressuring Sarah to ask me for more money for his investments, his ventures, his empty promises, the way Sarah started sounding tired, stressed, withdrawn. Her laughter faded, her light dimmed.
I told myself it was just the pressure of her job, the adjustment to married life.
The LA hustle. I'd been a fool, a blind, trusting fool, and my blindness might have cost my daughter her life. The guilt was a heavy weight in my chest. We landed at LAX just as the first hint of dawn was painting the sky a bruised purple. The city felt alien, hostile, sprawling and indifferent to my pain. I took a taxi straight to St. John's. The driver weaved through the early morning traffic. He seemed unaware that my world was collapsing. The palm trees looked wrong. The air smelled wrong. Everything felt wrong. The hospital was vast and intimidating, a maze of glass and steel. The sterile smell of disinfectant burned my nostrils. It smelled like the place where Linda died. I hated hospitals. They were places where hope went to die. I navigated the quiet hallways. Everything was too clean, too quiet. I found the ICU waiting room. It was empty. I walked up to the reception desk. "I'm here for Sarah Miller," I told the nurse behind the glass. My voice was rough, tired. "I'm Frank, her father." I just flew in. She directed me to the floor nurse's station. A woman with kind, tired eyes looked up. Her name tag read Maria. She looked like she had seen it all. "I'm Sarah's father," I said. The words caught in my throat. "Please, tell me what happened." Her husband said it was a stomach bug. Troy. I needed the truth. No more lies, no more sugarcoating. Maria stood up. She guided me away from the desk, her hand gently on my arm. Her touch was the first kindness I had felt in 12 hours. But it terrified me. Nurses only touched you like that when the news was bad, when they were about to deliver a blow. "Mr. Frank, your daughter is very sick," Maria said softly. Her voice was filled with compassion. "It wasn't a stomach bug. She has a severe kidney infection." "Kidney infection?"
That didn't sound so bad. People got those all the time.
"Antibiotics fixed it. It went untreated for too long," Maria continued, her voice dropping lower, "and developed into sepsis." Sepsis. The word hit me like a punch to the gut. Sepsis kills people. It's the body poisoning itself. It's fast. It's brutal. Untreated? Why wasn't it treated? Kevin said a doctor saw her. My mind struggled to process this. The lies compounding the reality. Maria sighed. A deep, frustrated sound. "We don't know about any doctor seeing her before she arrived. She was brought in by ambulance on Sunday night." She paused, letting the words sink in. "She was delirious, severely dehydrated, barely conscious. She was dying, alone." "Who called the ambulance?" I asked, dreading the answer. I already knew it wasn't Kevin. He was too busy. "Too important." "A neighbor found her," Maria said. "Apparently the neighbor heard her crying for help. They found the apartment door unlocked." Maria looked at me, her eyes dark with pity. "Your daughter was collapsed on the bathroom floor. Collapsed, alone, crying for help. While her husband was gone, the image seared itself into my mind. My beautiful daughter, broken and abandoned. A stranger saved my daughter, while the man who promised to protect her left her to suffer. "Where is he?" I demanded. The rage surged through me. Hot and blinding, I wanted to find him. I wanted to wrap my hands around his neck. "Where is Kevin?" Maria looked down at her shoes, her expression hardening. "He hasn't been here." "What do you mean, he hasn't been here?" The words felt impossible to comprehend. My daughter was fighting for her life. "Where else would he be? What could be more important than this?" "He called when she was admitted," Maria explained, her voice tight with suppressed anger. She understood. She saw the monster behind the mask. After we identified her and contacted him, he authorized the initial treatments over the phone. "He said he had urgent business out of town," Maria continued, the sarcasm dripping from her voice. "Urgent business. The party, the networking event, the investors. But he hasn't physically visited," Maria added. Not once in 3 days. The world tilted on its axis. The reality of his betrayal was staggering. My daughter was alone, fighting for her life, and her husband hadn't even bothered to show up. He didn't care. We've been trying to reach him for critical decisions, Maria added. He rarely answers, and when he does, he seems distracted. By the clinking glasses, by the laughter, by his ventures, by his ambition. Take me to her, I said. My voice was dangerously low, the anger simmering beneath the surface. Ready to explode, Maria led me down the hallway. The rhythmic beeping of machines grew louder, the sound of life hanging by a thread. The air grew colder. The silence grew heavier. She stopped outside room 8 and opened the door. The sight shattered me. My beautiful Sarah. She was so small, so fragile in the large hospital bed. Her face, usually so animated and bright, was pale and clammy. Her hair was matted against the pillow. She looked like a broken doll. Tubes were everywhere, in her arms, in her nose. A ventilator machine hissed rhythmically, breathing for her. The sound of the machine was loud and intrusive. Monitors beeped and flashed, tracing the fragile thread of her life. She looked broken, and I hadn't been there to fix her. I hadn't been there to protect her. I stumbled to her bedside, my legs barely holding me. The exhaustion of the flight, the fear, the grief, all crashing down on me at once. I reached out and grabbed her hand. It was cold, ice cold. Sarah, honey, it's Dad. I'm here. I'm right here. My voice cracked. The words choked in my throat. There was no response. She was heavily sedated, lost in a deep, dark place where I couldn't reach her, where my love couldn't protect her. I sank into the plastic chair next to her bed. The reality of the situation crushed me. The grief was overwhelming. A tidal wave of pain and fear. I buried my face in my hands and wept. I wept for my daughter, for my failure to protect her, for the cruelty of the world that had broken her heart, and now her body. I cried until I had no tears left, until I was empty. The doctor came in shortly after. Dr. Evans. He was older. Serious. He didn't sugarcoat things. He had the look of a man who had seen too much tragedy. Mr. Frank, he said, shaking my hand. His grip was firm, reassuring. I'm so sorry about Sarah. Is she going to make it? I asked, looking up at him. Desperate for hope. Desperate for a lie. Even. We are doing everything we can, he said, looking at the monitors. Not at me. Doctors always look at the monitors when they don't want to look you in the eye. The sepsis caused severe damage to her kidneys. She's on continuous dialysis. The infection is widespread. We are hitting it with the strongest antibiotics we have. He paused. The silence was heavy, loaded. But he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. I knew what "but" meant in a hospital. It meant prepare for the worst. The next 24 hours are critical, he said quietly. If the antibiotics start winning the fight, she has a chance. If not, he looked at me then. His eyes were filled with a weary sadness, the look of a man who had seen too much death. If we had caught this earlier, it would be a different story, he added, twisting the knife. Whether intentional or not, the words cut deep. A simple kidney infection shouldn't lead to this. It shouldn't have. If someone had cared, if someone had taken her to the doctor, if her husband hadn't been a monster. The guilt was a suffocating blanket. I should have come sooner. I should have ignored Kevin. I should have trusted my instincts. I should have flown out on Monday when the silence started. The weight of my inaction, even though, based on his lies, felt unbearable, crushing me with the realization that my hesitation might have cost Sarah everything. My hesitation might have killed my daughter. I sat there for hours, watching the rise and fall of her child, listening to the machines, keeping her alive. The rhythmic hiss of the ventilator became the soundtrack of my nightmare. The fury at Kevin simmered beneath the surface, a molten core of rage, waiting to erupt. I needed to channel it. I needed to use it. I needed answers. I needed to understand how this happened, how it got this bad, how he could be so cruel. I remembered what Maria said. The neighbor. I needed to talk to her. I needed to hear it from someone who was there, someone who saw the truth I found the neighbor's name and address on the admission paperwork. Sarah had filled out when she first arrived. Mrs. Jenkins. She lived in the apartment next door to Sarah and Kevin. I took a cab to their apartment building. It was a sleek, modern high-rise in the heart of Santa Monica. The kind of place Kevin would choose. Expensive, impersonal, and cold. All glass and steel. No heart, no soul. I found Mrs. Jenkins' apartment and knocked on the door. A woman in her late 60s with sharp eyes and a worried expression answered. She looked like she had seen it all. Mrs. Jenkins? I'm Frank, Sarah's father. Her expression softened. The worry lines around her eyes deepened. Oh, thank God. I was so worried about her. How is she? That poor girl. I've been praying for her. She's in the ICU, I said, my voice tight. The words still felt surreal. She's very sick. You saved her life. If you hadn't found her, I couldn't finish the sentence. Mrs. Jenkins invited me in. Her apartment was cozy, filled with plants and photographs of grandchildren. I felt like a home, warm and welcoming. Unlike the cold mausoleum next door where my daughter lived. But tell me what happened, I pleaded, sitting on her sofa. My hands were still shaking. Where was her husband? Where was Kevin? Mrs. Jenkins sighed, wringing her hands. Her eyes filled with anger. That man, he's awful. I never liked him. He was always so cold, so dismissive of Sarah. She leaned forward, her voice low. Sarah was sick for days. I could hear her crying, moaning in pain through the walls. It was heartbreaking. My heart clenched. My daughter in pain, alone, crying out for help that didn't come. I asked Kevin if she needed a doctor. Mrs. Jenkins continued, her voice trembling with anger. I banged on their door on Saturday, he answered, looking annoyed. He brushed me off. She looked at me, her eyes flashing with anger. He said she was just being dramatic, that she was always looking for attention. Dramatic? I spat the word out. My daughter, who never complained, who faced her mother's death with quiet strength, was dramatic. The cruelty of the insult was breathtaking. He was always going out, Mrs. Jenkins said. Meetings, parties, trips. He left her alone all the time, even when she was sick. On Sunday night, I heard a loud crash from their apartment. A thud. I went to check. The door was slightly open. She paused, her eyes distant, reliving the memory, the horror of it clearly etched in her mind. I found Sarah on the bathroom floor, she whispered, her voice trembling. She was burning up with fever, barely breathing. She was delirious, calling out for her mother, calling out for Linda. My heart broke all over again. Kevin was nowhere to be found. Mrs. Jenkins continued. His car, that fancy sports car he loved more than anything, was gone. He was gone. She looked at me, her eyes filled with disgust. He left her there to die. Frank. He didn't care. He just left her. The confirmation of his cruelty was staggering. It wasn't just negligence. It wasn't just carelessness. It wasn't just selfishness. It was intentional abandonment. It was calculated cruelty. I thanked Mrs. Jenkins and went back to the hospital. My mind was reeling. The image of Sarah collapsed on the bathroom floor, alone, scared, haunted me. The cold tiles, the silence, the desperation. I walked back into the ICU. The sterile smell hit me again. I sat by her bedside, holding her cold hand. The rage was building, demanding release. It was a cold, focused rage now. Not hot and blinding, but sharp and precise. I needed to confront him. I needed to hear his voice when he realized I knew the truth. I needed to hear him squirm. I looked at the time. 4 p.m. in L.A. I pulled out my phone and dialed Kevin's number. He answered on the first ring this time. The music was even louder than the night before. The party was still going strong. I could hear the distinct sound of water splashing, the roar of engines. He wasn't just at a party, he was on a boat. Hank? Hey, I was just about to call you, Kevin slurred. His voice was loud and cheerful, the sound of a man without a care in the world. He was drunk. Where are you, Kevin? I asked. My voice was dead calm, the calm before the storm, the silence before the explosion. Oh, I'm out on the water, man. Marina Del Rey. Closing the big deal I told you about. He laughed, a sloppy, arrogant sound. You should see this yacht, Frank. It's incredible. 100 feet long. We're celebrating. A yacht. My daughter was fighting for her life, tethered to machines, breathing through a tube, and her husband was celebrating on a yacht. The disconnect was monstrous. She's in the ICU, Kevin, I said. The words were clipped and sharp, like shards of glass. She has sepsis. She might die. I wanted the words to hit him like a physical blow. There was a pause. The music seemed to dim slightly. Maybe he covered the microphone. Maybe a flicker of shame crossed his face. But I doubted it. Monsters don't feel shame. Sepsis? What? That's impossible, he said, the cheerfulness returning, but strained now. The doctor told me she just needed fluids. She's fine. You're lying, I spat. The rage finally breaking through. The dam burst. You never saw a doctor. A neighbor found her collapsed on the floor. You left her alone, sick and scared. You left her to die. Look, Frank, don't blame me for this, Kevin slurred. Suddenly defensive, the arrogance shifting to cowardice, the smooth operator turning into a cornered rat. She gets sick sometimes. I didn't know it was this bad. I'm a busy man. Busy. The word echoed in the sterile room. Busy celebrating, I said, my voice shaking with fury. While your wife is dying, this celebration is for her, he shouted back, the entitlement ringing clear even through the phone. I just closed the biggest deal of my life. A massive venture. We're going to be rich, Frank. Richer than you could ever imagine. Richer, always about the money. Always about the status. Always about him. Then Dr. Evans walked into the room. He looked grave, his face etched with worry. The timing couldn't have been worse. Or perhaps it couldn't have been better. Mr. Frank, we need to discuss Sarah's treatment options. Dr. Evans' voice was low, serious. I muted the phone, my heart hammering against my ribs. Kevin was still babbling about his deal in the background, his voice a distant buzz. What option? I asked, turning my back to the door, my focus narrowing to the doctor. I thought you were doing everything. Dr. Evans pulled up a chair. He leaned forward, his face etched with concern. The standard antibiotics are not working as effectively as we hoped. Her kidney function is declining further. He took a deep breath. She's slipping away, Frank. Slipping away. The words echoed in the sterile room. The same words they used for Linda. No, not again. But there is an experimental treatment, he continued, a flicker of hope in his eyes. A new dialysis filtration system. It aggressively cleans the blood. It has shown promise in severe sepsis cases. It could save her life. Do it, I said instantly. No hesitation. Whatever it takes. Money is no object. Dr. Evans hesitated. He looked uncomfortable. His eyes darted to the floor. There's a problem. This treatment is very expensive, and it's not fully covered by their insurance. I don't care about the insurance, I said. Confused. We have the trust fund. Use it. That's what it's for. Dr. Evans looked at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of pity and anger. We actually presented this option to Mr. Miller yesterday over the phone. I stared at him. A cold dread washed over me. Yesterday, while Sarah was fighting for her life. While Kevin was networking. And, I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Dreading the answer, he refused authorization. Dr. Evans said quietly, his voice heavy with disapproval. He said it was too expensive. He said they couldn't afford the financial strain right now and that we should stick to the standard protocol. The standard protocol that wasn't working. The standard protocol that would lead to her death. But there's more, Dr. Evans added, his voice tight. He holds the medical power of attorney. As her spouse, he has the final say. Legally, we have to follow his directive. I'm sorry, Frank. My hands are tied. The twist hit me with brutal clarity, stealing the breath from my lungs. The air rushed out of the room. It was so much worse than I imagined. It wasn't just indifference. It wasn't just abandonment. It was cold, calculated cruelty. It was murder by proxy. Kevin had refused the treatment that could save Sarah's life. He had claimed financial strain. knowing full well about the $500,000 sitting in the trust fund. Money I had sacrificed everything for. He hadn't just left her to die. He had actively chosen to let her die. I looked back at the phone. Still connected to Kevin, the realization was staggering. He wasn't just celebrating a business deal, he was celebrating his impending freedom and his inheritance. If Sarah died, as her husband, he would inherit the remainder of the trust fund. The safety net I built would become his golden parachute. He was waiting for her to die. He was killing her for the money. If this story has your heart racing, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Every click helps us keep uncovering stories that deserve to be heard, because what happened next changed everything. I unmuted the phone. Kevin was still talking, bragging, his voice smug with drunken confidence. The sound of his voice made me nauseous. And the best part, Frank, he was saying, is that I structured the deal myself. Used a little leverage, moved some things around. It's brilliant, really. Leverage, the word hit me like a physical blow. He had leverage, but where did he get it? Leverage? I asked, my voice trembling with a newfound terrifying calm. What leverage, Kevin? You didn't have the capital for a deal like that. You were broke. He laughed. That sloppy, arrogant sound again. A little creativity, Frank. Borrowed a bit from the trust. The principal. The principal. The money I protected. The money he couldn't touch without my signature. It's fine. It's an investment, he continued, dismissive. Sarah would have wanted me to. She always supported my ambition. The depth of his depravity was bottomless. He was stealing her safety net while she was incapacitated, while simultaneously refusing the treatment that could save her life. He was using her money to fund the life he planned to live without her. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was financial, a total exploitation of her vulnerability. He wasn't just a snake, he was a monster, and I had let him into her life. You stole from her, I whispered, the horror making my voice shake. You forged my signature. I didn't steal. And her husband. I managed the finances, he retorted, the arrogance unwavering. And I didn't forge anything. There was a clause, an emergency provision. I utilized it. Perfectly legal. The loophole. The snake found the loophole. Besides, it's all the same pot anyway, he added. Once this deal closes, we'll be set. Then, his tone shifted. He lowered his voice, a chilling intimacy in his tone, like we were co-conspirators. And, honestly, Frank, even if things go south with Sarah, life goes on, right? I'll be taken care of. The trust ensures that. He admitted it. He admitted everything. The theft, the calculation, the expectation of her death. The motive. Enjoy the party, Kevin, I said. My voice was cold and dead. Enjoy it while it lasts. I hung up the phone. My hands were shaking, but not with fear. With a cold, focused rage. The monster had a face, and it was the man my daughter loved. I turned to Dr. Evans. The time for grief was over. The time for action was now. The time for revenge had begun. Dr. Evans, I am her father. His negligence put her here. He is actively preventing her recovery for financial gain. I am challenging his medical proxy. Start the experimental treatment immediately. I will cover all costs. I will sign whatever you need me to sign. Dr. Evans nodded, relieved. He had wanted to do it all along. He saw the urgency. I'll have our legal team draw up the emergency paperwork. We need to move fast. Time is running out. Time was running out for Sarah. And time was about to run out for Kevin. I knew what I had to do. I wouldn't confront him physically. I wouldn't scream or shout. I wouldn't waste time arguing with a sociopath. I would destroy him, completely, utterly, leaving nothing behind, the way he tried to destroy Sarah. I would strip him for parts. I walked out into the hallway. My mind was clear, for the first time since I left the garage. The fog of fear had lifted, replaced by the clarity of purpose. I wasn't just a scared father anymore. I was a protector, and I was going to war. I called Robert Davis. He was the lawyer back home who had set up the trust. He was an old friend. We played poker every Thursday night for 20 years. He was the only man I trusted implicitly. The man who knew where the bodies were buried. He answered immediately. Frank, what's going on? Are you okay? You sound terrible. I'm in Los Angeles. Robert, I said, my voice tight with emotion. Sarah is in the ICU. She might be dying. Oh my God, Frank. What happened? I'm so sorry. His voice was filled with genuine concern. The concern of a friend. Her husband happened. I said, the words bitter. I explained the situation quickly. The untreated infection, the abandonment, the refused treatment, the yacht party, and the final blow. Robert, he's been accessing the trust, the principal. He used an emergency clause. He admitted it to me. He's using the money for his own business deals while she's unconscious. And he refused a life-saving treatment because it was too expensive. Robert Davis was silent. He knew how much that money meant to me. He knew I sold my house for it. He knew the sacrifice I made. I need you to freeze the accounts, Robert. Now, I want him destroyed. Frank, it's complicated, Davis said, his lawyer brain kicking in, cautious, methodical. Kevin is a co-trustee. He utilized a legal clause. I need proof of malfeasance. I need documentation. We have protocols. He hesitated. If we move too fast, he could sue the trust. He could sue you. We have to do this by the book. Protocols. Documentation. The book. The red tape that protected monsters like Kevin. He's on a yacht right now, celebrating, I roared, not caring who heard me in the hospital hallway. Nurses turned to stare. I didn't care. My daughter is on a ventilator. He refused a life-saving treatment because it was too expensive. How's that for documentation? My voice cracked with raw fury and desperation, the sound of a father fighting for his child's life. He admitted to me, over the phone, that he expects to inherit if she dies. I continued, my voice gaining strength. He admitted it, Robert? He is murdering my daughter for money. Now stop talking about protocols and do something. My raw fury cut through the legal jargon. The desperation cut through the red tape. He admitted that, Davis asked, his voice hardening, the lawyer brain switching off, the friend brain switching on, the warrior brain activating, yes. And Robert, I remember the clauses I insisted we include, the ones you said were unnecessary, the morality and gross negligence clause. When we set up the trust, I had insisted on a safety valve, a clause that stated if any trustee acted in a way that endangered Sarah's well-being, showed gross financial negligence, or engaged in moral turpitude, they could be removed immediately. By the primary grantor. May. Use it, I command. Abandoning your wife on her deathbed and refusing medical care qualifies. It more than qualifies. It's the definition of moral turpitude. I want him cut off completely. I want the trust frozen, and I want his access revoked. Immediately. Okay, Frank. I'm on it, Davis said, his voice firm, determined. I will file the emergency injunction now. It will take about an hour to process through the banking systems. The banks are slow, even in emergencies. An hour. Sarah had to hold on for one more hour. And that new business deal he's funding, I asked. My mind racing, thinking of every angle, every way to hurt him. I want you to find out where that money went and pull it back. He accessed it under false pretenses. He endangered Sarah's life to fund his venture. That's fraud. I'm already tracing the recent transfers, Davis said. We can claw back the funds. The investment firm he used won't want to be involved in a fraudulent transaction. They won't want the liability. I'm on it, Frank. Give him hell. I will, I said, and I hung up. The engine of justice had started turning. It was slow, but it was powerful, and it was about to crush Kevin under its wheels. I walked back to Sarah's room. The new filtration system was already being set up, a complex array of tubes and machines humming beside her bed. Dr. Evans was overseeing the process, his face focused. It looked intimidating, but it was. I sat down beside her, stroking her hair. It's okay, honey, I whispered. Daddy's fixing it. I'm going to fix everything. Just hold on. Please hold on. Fight for me. I waited. The minutes ticked by on the hospital clock. Tick, tock. The rhythmic hiss of the ventilator and the hum of the dialysis machine were the only sounds in the room. It was the longest hour of my life. Longer than the flight. Longer than the hours waiting for Linda to pass. Every minute felt like a gamble with Sarah's life. Every second felt like a prayer. I watched the clock. 5:15 p.m. 5:30 p.m. 5:30 p.m. The tension was unbearable. 50 minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Robert Davis. Done. All accounts frozen. Kevin's access terminated. We have initiated the clawback on the transfers. The investment firm he was working with has been notified of the fraudulent transaction. They are cooperating fully. I felt a grim satisfaction. The first blow had landed, and it was a knockout punch. The trap was set. The prey was about to realize he was caught. It didn't take long. 10 minutes later, exactly 1 hour after I ordered the strike, my phone rang. The caller ID flashed. Kevin. I walked out into the hallway to take the call. I didn't want his toxic voice anywhere near my daughter. I wanted her space to be clean, pure, free of his poison. I answered the phone. I didn't say anything. I just listened. I wanted to hear the sound of his world collapsing. What did you do? His voice was a shriek, a high-pitched sound of pure panic. The arrogance was gone. The smoothness was gone. The music and the celebration were gone. The background was chaotic, shouting, confusion, the sound of a boat engine cutting out, the sound of a man realizing he was trapped. My cards aren't working, he stammered, his voice trembling. The arrogance was gone, replaced by terror. I tried to pay the yacht charter, and they declined. All of them. They are threatening to call the Coast Guard. They think I'm trying to steal the boat. The humiliation, the embarrassment. It was beautiful. That's strange, I said. My voice was devoid of emotion. Cold, flat, dead. And the bank, he continued, hysterical. The panic rising in his voice. I tried to log into the trust account, and I'm locked out. I can't access anything. What is going on, Frank? Fix it. Fix it now. How unfortunate, I said, savoring the sound of his panic, savoring the taste of his fear. And my deal, he screamed. The sound of a man realizing his future was collapsing. My investors just called me. The funds I transferred were pulled back. They said the transaction was fraudulent. The clawback had worked. The money was gone. The deal was dead. They are threatening to sue me, he wailed.
They are going to ruin me. Ruin you? I said.
The cold fury finally breaking through, the mask of calm slipping, the rage erupting. You left my daughter to die, Kevin. You refused the treatment that could save her life. You stole her money while you celebrated on a yacht. You deserve to be ruined. I let the words hang in the air, heavy and damning. I didn't steal it. I'm her husband. That's my money. That's my money. The entitlement in his voice was staggering. Even now, even when caught, even when faced with the consequences of his actions, he still believed he deserved it. Not anymore, I said. You are no longer a trustee. The morality clause was activated. Gross negligence, endangerment, fraud. I delivered the verdict. The sentence, it's all gone, Kevin, every penny. You can't do that. You're just a washed-up mechanic, he screamed, resorting to insults. His last weapon, the weapon of the weak. I'll sue you. I'll take everything you have. You will take nothing, I said, cutting him off. My voice clear and final. You have nothing. You are penniless. The clothes on your back are the only things you have left. And I doubt you even own those. They were probably bought with Sarah's money. There was a strangled sound on the other end of the line. It wasn't anger anymore. It was pure terror. The sound of a man realizing his life was over, his future vanished, his reputation destroyed. The sound of a monster realizing he was powerless. Frank, please, he begged, his voice cracking. He was sobbing now. A hysterical, ugly sound. The mask of the smooth operator completely gone. The cornered rat begging for mercy. I need that money, he pleaded. My investors, they'll kill me. I owe people. Dangerous people. The sharks were circling, and he was bleeding in the water. Please, I'll go to the hospital. I'll apologize. I'll sign anything. Just turn it back on. Please, Frank. I'm begging you. It's too late, Kevin, I said. You showed me who you are. You valued money over my daughter's life. I will never forgive you for that. There is no apology for what you did. I paused, letting the words sink in. I delivered the final blow, the coup de grace, and I am also informing the authorities about the fraud and the endangerment that led to her condition. They will be waiting for you when you dock. No! 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 He lost his mind. He screamed and cursed and begged. A torrent of desperation and disbelief. His world, built on arrogance and stolen money, had collapsed in a single hour. You ruined me. You ruined my life. He shrieked, his voice echoing in the quiet hospital hallway. You ruined your own life, Kevin, I said. I just provided the tow truck. Goodbye, Kevin, I said. I hung up the phone. The silence in the hallway was heavy. I felt no joy, no triumph, just a profound sadness, and the exhaustion of a battle fought and won. The war was over. The monster was slain. But the damage remained. The scars would never fade. I walked back into room 8. I sat down next to Sarah and took her hand again. It felt a little warmer this time. I looked at the monitors. Her blood pressure, which had been dangerously low, seemed to be stabilizing. The new filtration system was working. It was cleaning her blood, saving her life. I rested my head on the side of her bed, emotionally spent. The adrenaline receded, leaving behind a deep, aching grief for what she had gone through, for what I almost lost, for the innocence that was stolen from her. I am here, Sarah, I whispered, tears finally falling from my eyes. I will never let anyone hurt you again. I promise. Suddenly I felt a faint pressure on my hand. I looked up, startled. My eyes were blurry with tears, but I saw it. Sarah's fingers had twitched. They squeezed mine, a weak but definite movement. A sign of life, a sign of hope. Sarah, her eyelids fluttered. I jumped up and called for the nurse. She moved. She squeezed my hand. Maria rushed in, followed by Dr. Evans. They checked her vitals, her reflexes. They shone a light in her eyes. Dr. Evans looked at the monitors, a hint of cautious optimism in his eyes. A small smile played on his lips. Her vitals are improving, he said, his voice filled with relief. The filtration system is clearing the toxins from her blood. It seems she's turning the corner. He smiled, a small, tired smile. She's a fighter, your daughter, I cried then, not tears of anger or fear, but tears of overwhelming relief, tears of gratitude. She was still here. She was fighting. She was coming back to me. The next few days were a blur of slow, agonizing progress. Small steps forward, a few steps back, but she was moving in the right direction, away from the darkness, towards the light. Sarah slowly woke up. The ventilator was removed. She was weak, confused. Her body bruised and battered, and devastated when I gently told her what happened. The truth about Kevin, the abandonment, the betrayal, the realization that the man she loved was a monster. She didn't ask about Kevin at first. She focused on healing, on taking small sips of water, on sitting up in bed, on rebuilding her strength, on surviving. She was focused on the future, not the past. The fallout from Kevin's destruction was swift and brutal. He was arrested when the yacht docked, charged with fraud and grand larceny related to the trust fund. The police were also investigating the endangerment charges related to Sarah's condition. The investors were suing him. The ambitious young man who wanted everything ended up with nothing. Handcuffs instead of gold watches. A jail cell instead of a penthouse. A life destroyed by his own greed. A week later, Sarah was moved out of the ICU and into a private room. I filled it with flowers, trying to bring some light into the darkness, trying to erase the smell of disinfectant and death, trying to bring beauty back into her life. Dad, she said one afternoon, her voice hoarse from the ventilator tube. Where is Kevin? I hesitated. I didn't want to hurt her more, but she needed to know the truth. She needed closure. Kevin is gone, honey, I said gently, taking her hand. He's facing charges. He won't be coming back. He won't be able to hurt you ever again." She looked at me for a long moment, her eyes searching mine for the truth. Then she nodded slowly. A single tear rolled down her cheek. She cried then, not for the man he was, but for the man she thought she loved. She mourned the illusion that had shattered, the future she thought she had, the dream that had become a nightmare. "He let me get sick," she whispered, the realization dawning on her, the horror of it sinking in. "He didn't care if I died. He wanted me to die." "He didn't deserve you, Sarah," I said, holding her close, feeling her warmth, her heartbeat, the proof of her survival. "He was a broken engine, all noise and smoke, but nothing under the hood, nothing where it mattered, no heart, no soul." She cried herself to sleep in my arms, and I held her, the way I held her when she was a little girl and scared of the dark. I was her protector again. It took months for Sarah to recover fully. The physical wounds healed, the kidneys repaired themselves, but the emotional scars remained, deep and raw. The betrayal had shattered her trust in the world, in herself. We talked a lot during those months. We reconnected, rebuilding the bond that had frayed under the strain of distance and deception. We talked about Linda, about the life we had before Kevin, about the life we would have after him. We started gluing the pieces back together. Again, we initiated the divorce proceedings. Robert Davis handled everything. Kevin, facing significant jail time and lawsuits from his angry investors, didn't fight it. He signed the papers from his jail cell. He disappeared from our lives, a shadow banished by the light. A bad memory fading in the rearview mirror. A monster slain. A few months later, I brought Sarah home. Not to Los Angeles, not to the city of broken dreams and shattered promises, but back to our hometown, back to the apartment above the garage, back to the smell of engine oil and stale coffee. It was a cold winter evening. The garage was closed. The smell of the soup I was cooking drifted downstairs. The familiar smell of home. Sarah was sitting on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, staring out the window at the familiar streetlights. She was still healing, still quiet, but she was strong, resilient. My daughter, my fighter. I sat down next to her and handed her a mug of soup. "How are you doing, honey?" I asked. She looked at me, her eyes clear and sad but strong. The light was returning to her eyes. "I'm okay, Dad. It just hurts to realize that my life meant less to him than money, that he saw me as a paycheck, a means to an end. His loss," I said, putting my arm around her, "a loss he'll regret for the rest of his miserable life. He lost the only thing that truly mattered, and he didn't even realize it. He traded love for money, and ended up with neither." She smiled faintly, a ghost of her old laugh, the laugh that could light up the darkest room. It was coming back, slowly, but surely. "Thank you, Dad," she whispered, resting her head on my shoulder, "for coming to get me, for saving me, for fixing everything." "Always," I said. "That's what dads do. We fix things." We sat in silence. The comfortable silence of family. The money and the trust was safe. Restored after the clawback. But it didn't matter anymore. I realized that I had thought money could protect her, that a trust fund could keep her safe from the world, but it almost cost her her life. Money was a poor substitute for presence, for love, for protection. What mattered was the warmth of her shoulder against mine, the sound of her breathing, the second chance we had been given. I was just a mechanic, but I had fixed the most important thing in my life, my daughter's heart, and my own. We were home, we were safe, and we were together. That was all the wealth I needed. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot because your time matters.